Who do you think the most average team in college football is? That's a question I sometimes ask myself, and in today's video, I decided to finally get to the bottom of it. When I think of average, I think of 6.5 wins. I think of a team that wins half of their games and then wins a bowl game every other appearance. That is exactly what I'm using to measure the most average team in college football, and I wanted to take a look at the last 5 years, but because of the weird 2020 season, I decided to add another one. We're going to go through the last 6 seasons and see which team averages the closest to 6.5 wins. Some of the results may shock you, and a lot of these programs were in a much different spot a few years ago than they are now. And before we get started, be sure to subscribe if you love college football content. Let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next, and also be sure to turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's get started and talk about the most average program in college football. So before we really get started with the video, I want to clarify that I'm just talking about Power 5 programs right now, and if you'd like to see this for the Group of 5, I'd be happy to do so. We have roughly 18 teams to cover, and only one team exactly averages 6.5 wins. Let's start with a team though that everyone probably thinks is average, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Every year, everyone jokes about how Iowa goes 7-5, and the majority of you would probably expect that they average 7 wins a season. Over the last 6 years though, the Hawkeyes have actually taken the next step. They've won 9, 10, 6, 10, 8, and 9 games. That lowest number came during the 2020 season, and they actually average out to 8.66 wins. That to me was pretty crazy, but they are in the Big Ten West. Their offense is absolutely horrible, so I guess why change? It's not the Hawkeyes though. They're not the most average program in America. So on the lower end, many probably think that Boston College is the most average team in America. It seemed like every single year Steve Addazio won 6 games, and Jeff Hafley also always has the Eagles around 6 games. For the most part over the last 6 years, that has actually been true. They've won 6 games on 4 different occasions, and then also won 7 games in 2018, and then 3 in 2022. That averages out to 5.67 wins, and there are 2 more teams that actually joined the Eagles there. The first one is UCLA. Yes, over the last 2 years, the Bruins have actually been pretty solid, but before that, it was honestly tough sledding. It took a little while for Chip Kelly to get going, as in 2018, the Bruins won 3 games, then 4, then 3 again, before they broke out and won 8 games in 2021. DTR had them peak last year at 9, and then so far they have 7 this year. They could get up to 9 wins, but for now, they are averaging out at about 5.67 wins. Same can be said for Oregon State. They've followed a very similar path to the Bruins, as when Jonathan Smith took over, they were an absolute dumpster fire. In his first year, Smith's Beavers only won 2 games, but then kind of showed flash in 2019. They were 1 win away from a bowl game, and then in 2020, they didn't really do much, but they did get that big win over Oregon. 2021 is when they finally figured it out, as they won 7 games then, and then last year, as we all know, they broke out and won 10. Oregon State could win 10 games once again this season, but they would have to beat Oregon and win their bowl game. So yeah, Oregon State, UCLA, and Boston College all average exactly 5.67 wins. They're pretty much average, but not the most average. Starting from the higher end of things, there are actually 5 programs who have averaged 6.83 wins per season. What's crazy is a lot of them are actually doing really well right now, and one of them is absolutely awful. The first one is Ole Miss. Believe it or not, over the last few years, has not really been that consistent. In 2018, they won 5 games, in 2019, they won 4, and in 2020, they also won 5. Those 3 bad seasons weigh them down, but ever since 2021, Ole Miss has started to surge. They won 10 games then, won 8 last year, and could potentially win 11 games this year. Ole Miss is definitely a program on the rise, but for now, over the last 6 years, they're averaging 6.83 wins per season. The same can be said for another SEC team, Tennessee. It's kind of hard to believe, but I guess Tennessee's a little bit mediocre. In 2018, they won 5 games, had an 8-win season in 2019, and then had an awful 2020 season, which has not helped their average. They only won 3 games then, but since 2021, Tennessee started to figure it out. They won 7 games then, won 11 last year, and could win up to 9 this season. The average will probably go up to about 7, but for now, they're still stuck at 6.83. The same can be said for Baylor. Baylor has been really weird. They've had a couple of really good years, and then they've had some really bad years, which have put them where they are now. In 2018, they won 7. In 2019, they won 11 with Matt Rule, and then won 2 games in Dave Aranda's first year in 2020. That was awful, but in year 2, Baylor won 12. It's truly up and down for them, but they have been on the steady decline. They only won 6 games in 2022, and have only won 3 this year. Baylor right now is on the downfall, but they're the example of a team that has extreme highs and extreme lows. The same can't be said for Iowa State. They've been remarkably consistent over the last 6 years, as their 6.83 win average makes sense. They won 8 in 2018, won 7 in 2019, won 9 in 2020, won 7 in 2021, won 4 in 2022, and have a chance to win 8 in 2023, but they only have 6 so far. The Hawkeyes have been stable under Matt Campbell, and you can't say that this next team has been stable at all. And for the most part, TCU is stable outside of one good year. They're a team that's really been average, as they have win totals of 7, 5, 6, 5, 5, and then 13. We all know that the Horned Frogs got to the national championship last year, and this is the most extreme outlier on the entire list of 18 teams today. TCU has really hovered around that 6-win mark, but that 13-win season brought them up. So yeah, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Baylor, Iowa State, and TCU all average 6.83 wins per year and are pretty close to average, but not the most. For our next group, we have a couple of teams who average just under 6.5 wins per season. The first one we're going to talk about is Michigan State. They've kind of been up and down over the last few years, and they've actually epitomized being perfectly average. For a regular season team, they've averaged exactly 6.00 wins per season. They won 7 games in both 2018 and 2019, before only winning 2 in 2020. They had their huge breakout 2021 season where they won 11 games, and then these past 2 years it has been a struggle. They've only won 5, and they've only won 4. That averaged out to 6 wins, and I guess you could say Michigan State's your champion for average of the regular season. We have 2 teams that are averaging 6.16 wins per season, and the first one is West Virginia. The Mountaineers have been pretty average under Neil Brown, as in the last 6 years they've had 5 with him, and then 1 with Holgorsen. In his year they won 8, and then in Neil's first year they won 5. Since then, they've won 6 games, 6 games again, 5 last year, and 7 this year. They could win 8, but the Mountaineers have been very average, and that's why everyone wants Neil Brown gone. 6.16 is not great for Mountaineers fans. The other team stuck in that spot is actually Washington State. They've actually also been kind of weird, as in 2018 they won 11 games. That is one of 2 major outliers in their last 6 years, as they won 6 in 2019, won 1 game in 2020, and then in the last 2 years have won 7, 7, and then now 5. They could get to their 6th win if they beat Washington, but that's likely not going to happen. Their average likely stays the exact same, and you could argue West Virginia and Washington State are pretty close to the most average team in college football. The next team is the 5th closest to the winner, and depending on how the season goes, they could be right there with number 1. That team is Louisville. In Bobby Petrino's last year, the Cardinals only won 2 games. In 2019 and year 1 under Satterfield, then after that, they steadily got better. They won 4 games in 2020, 6 in 2021, 8 in 2022, and now so far 10 in 2023 with Jeff Brom. It seems that Louisville is a program on the rise, but they've pretty much had a different season every single year. The Cardinals are pretty close though. Before we get to our winner though, we have 4 more teams to cover who all average 6.66 wins per season. That's only 0.16 away from the average, and these teams are actually honestly going to shock you. The first one we need to talk about is, believe it or not, the USC Trojan. While everyone thinks USC is one of the top programs year in and year out, they've actually been pretty dang average over the last few years. They won 5 games in 2018, won 8 in 2019, went back to 5 in 2020, had the horrible 2021 season with 4, and then last year ended up winning 11. That was a really good season and up to USC standards, but this year they've completely fallen off and only won 7. That comes out to a whopping 6.166, and sorry to the USC fans, but the Trojans are pretty dang close to average. They're not elite anymore. The other 3 schools are also very interesting, as Auburn actually makes the list. In 2018, the team won 8 games. In 2019, they won 9. That's more the Auburn that we are used to, but the last 4 years have really been average. In the last year of Malzahn, they won 6, and then in the 2 years of Brian Harsin, they won 6 and 5. This year's number likely stays around that, as they have 6 wins currently, and are more than likely not going to upset Bama. Auburn has really been pretty dang average, but like many will probably point out in the comment section, they play in the SEC West, which is ridiculously tough, so I don't think they are as average as that number indicate. The other team is actually my favorite school, the Mizzou Tigers. While Mizzou's a top 10 team right now, they have been unbelievably average over the last few years. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with that, as in 2018 and the last year of Drew Lock, they won 8 games, and then in 2019 and the last year of Barry Odom, they won 6. In year 1 in 2020, Drinkwitz won 5 games, and then the last 2 years has won 6. The Drinkwitz era was as average as it could possibly get, but this year the Tigers have finally broke through and won 9 games. Had they had an average season this year, my Mizzou Tigers might have actually been the most average school, but the 9 wins have helped bump that percentage up. And it's actually very similar for the other team, Florida State. While the Seminoles have enjoyed extreme success these last 2 years, the 4 years prior were really not good to them. They won 5 games in 2018, won 6 in 2019, and the Willie Taggart era was a disaster. Mike Norvell got off to a slow start, as they only won 3 in 2020, 5 in 2021, and then he finally broke through these last 2 years with 10 wins in 2022 and 11 wins so far. more than likely that average is going to go up, but it is wild that Auburn, FSU, USC, and Mizzou are all actually really close to that average. You really wouldn't expect that for Auburn, Florida State, and USC. Now we finally get to the last team. This is what you've all been waiting for and why you've watched the video. Before I reveal it, if you know who it is, put it down in the comment section below and leave a like if you want to support the video. The grand winner is Mississippi State. Honestly, I really could have expected this, as they are actually the reason why I decided to make this video. It's who I predicted would actually win it, and somehow I was right. Mississippi State won 8 games in 2018, 6 in 2019, 4 in 2020, 7 in 21, 9 in 22, and 5 so far this year. They're more than likely not going to beat Ole Miss, and that percentage comes out to exactly 6.5. Mississippi State is the most average program in college football. They're going to make a bowl game pretty much every year, and they're going to win a bowl game every other year according to that. It's crazy that I guessed that, because pretty much every year Mississippi State beats the teams they should and loses to every team they should also lose to. They're definitely average, but what do you guys think? Who in your opinion is the most average program in all of college football? Is there a team that I missed? And should I do this for the group of 5 level? Be sure to let me know down below, subscribe if you're new, leave a like, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.